Hello and welcome. In this video, we will see how we can construct different types of joint graphs. To that end, we again consider two variables x and y, and we suppose that we have collected data on these two variables from an underlying population, and we have listed the data on x as x1, x2 up to xn, and the data on y as y1, y2 up to yn. Then joint graphs can be constructed in three different cases. Again, we go ahead and consider the example of the 10 employees of a technology company in Kabul, and we suppose that we have collected data on their salary, education, gender, working hours, and we have recorded the data being collected on these variables in this table. First, we consider two qualitative variables, namely here gender and education, and construct its two-way table, which we have done here. Then, using the joint frequencies of gender and education, we construct the joint bar graph of these two variables. To that end, we consider a horizontal line and a vertical line. On horizontal line, we mark different education levels as high school, bachelor's, master's, and PhDs. On y-axis or on the vertical line, we consider the joint frequencies. On each education category, we see how many males and how many females we have, and based on the number of male and females in each category, we construct bars. Let's start with high school. In high school, we see that we have 0 females. That is, the number of females is 0, therefore the height is 0. But we have 2 males. That is, the height of the bar for male is 2. Let's go to the bachelor's. In bachelor's, again, we see we have 0 females, but we have 4 males. That is, the height for females is 0, and the height for males it is 4. For master's, we have 2 females and 1 male. Finally, for PhD, we have 1 female and 0 male. In order to make the distinction very clear, we show that this green color is male and this red color is females. Here in this bar graph, again, you see that as the education level increases, the number of females is increasing. That means that there is a kind of association between education level and gender of employees in this company. The second case is qualitative and quantitative variables such as gender and salary. For constructing the joint graph of the two variables, first we construct the two-way table of the two. Here we have salary less than 20. The second category 20 to 30, the last category more than 30, and then we have females and males here in the first row. We have 0 female in the first category of salary, 2 males in the first category, and so on and so forth. Then we can use this joint frequencies in order to construct the joint graph of gender and salary. Again, we consider a horizontal line and a vertical line. On the vertical line, of course, we consider the joint frequencies. On horizontal line, we have the different categories of salary, less than 20, between 20 and 30, and more than 30. Then we see how many females and how many males we have in each category. We have no females in the first category, no females in the second category, but we have 3 females in the third category. Going to male employees, we have 2 male employees in the first category. We have 4 male employees in the second category, and we have 1 male employee in the last category. As we increase the amount of salary, the number of female employees increases. That is, we can say that gender and salary associated. This joint graph is called the joint histogram of the gender and salary. We can also use the joint density plot of the two variables in order to represent the two variables together. Here we have the density plot of the salary of male employees in the blue, is the density plot of the salary of female employees. And we see here that the location of the peak for the female employees is larger than the location of the peak for male employees. And that's an indication that on average, the female employees are getting more salary or higher salary compared to male employees. The third case is where we have two quantitative variables such as working hours and salary. In this case, we use a graph called the scatter graph in order to represent the two variables together. To plot a scatter plot, we consider a horizontal line for working hours and mark the working hours as 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10 hours, and a vertical line for salary starting from 10,000, 20, 30, 40, and 50. Then we can see that we have this representation here is a two-dimensional space, and with the help of this two-dimensional space, each observation is being represented by a point whose x-coordinate is the working hours and whose y-coordinate is the salary. For example, the first observation here, the x-coordinate is 6 hours and the y-coordinate is 1000. That is this point here. This point has an x-coordinate of 6 hours and has a y-coordinate of 10,000 corresponding to the first employee. Going for the second employee, 8 hours and 20,000. That's 8 hours and 20,000. The third employee is 9 hours and 30,000, 9 hours and 30,000. The fourth employee, 9 hours and 35,000, and so on and so forth. We do this for all 10 employees of the company. Remember that each point here is representing an employee whose x-coordinate is the number of hours the employee is working and whose y-coordinate is representing the salary of the employee. This graph is called a scatter graph. It's evident in this scatter graph that as the number of working hours increases, the salary is going up. So that's why the trend of this scatter graph or these points is here upwards. Thanks for watching and good learning.